Welcome to the Southern Piedmont Conference edition of our football preview. Gabe Wisnick joined by sports writers Richard Walker, Philip Gardner as always. I'm going to ask a few questions related to Southern Piedmont teams that are going into the playoffs this week. First of all, the atmosphere for the Lincoln-North Lincoln game. What do you feel like that's going to be like? Two county teams, two rivals squaring off in round one.
It ought to be incredible. I mean, you know, they had this last year. The stakes were certainly higher when Lincoln hosted East Lincoln. You know, I've been to more, probably state home playoff games at Lincoln than any other school. They've just had the good fortune of having a lot of them. And it's always a real festive atmosphere at Battleground Stadium, Von Ray Harris Field. I would think with North Lincoln being in town, so many of those people are former Lincoln supporters. It's a big county rivalry. They just played each other last week. You know, it really... You know, it's the kind of thing that, you know, it's unusual to play in a playoff game in a back-to-back situation, but I expect the attitude and atmosphere and the excitement to be just as high, if not higher, than last week, because we know what's on the line. Lincoln state championship team from a year ago, trying to repeat, and North Lincoln, you know, the new kid in town. The schools like Lincoln and East Lincoln to the other side of their district are the schools they've been chasing, and you know, Matt Beam and his staff have done a terrific job building that program, and this would be a huge win for building that program. So I expect a terrific atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it's going to be wild. I was at the Lincoln and East Lincoln game in the fourth round last year, and, you know, both teams really came out, and the fans were out in Grove early. You know, the Lincoln people really take the football seriously, especially when it comes to the playoffs. And, you know, with them playing such a rival and such a neighbor of theirs, you know, North Lincoln's going to bring a crowd. And I think just the fact that they played last week adds so much to it, and especially that it was a close game. And, you know, North Lincoln feels like, you know, they've got a little bit of an edge this time, seeing as how they've got the motivation of having lost last week. And so there's so much built into it. I think both sides are a little bit nervous about it, and I think there's going to be a ton of fans. I think it'll be a great game. I kind of wish I could go to that one this week.
Yeah. Staying in Lincoln County, East Lincoln, obviously the #1 seed in their bracket. Obviously, they've got a tough task, even as a #1 seed. They play a Lincoln-North Lincoln winner, and then potentially a Shelby in the third round. What are their chances as a #1 seed to make a lengthy run, as Lincoln did last year?
Well, you know, they'll have a little less challenging of a road as the #1 seed. But, you know, I saw East Rutherford play Kings Mountain. That, you know, their record doesn't look all that impressive, but that'll be an imposing game for them. Certainly, you know, you would say Lincoln and North Lincoln would leave it all on the field, but if East Lincoln's on the other side, they'll get it ramped up again. And then, like you say, you got the specter of Shelby in that round, and then, you know, the possibility in the Western Finals of playing people like a Pisgah or a High Brighton or East Henderson who's going to be. You know, it's interesting. Last year, I thought Lincoln seemed to derive kind of added motivation each round they went further in the playoffs, because, you know, you could probably make a case, even though they were state champions last year, every step of the way, this side of maybe their first round game, people kind of went, well, I don't know if Lincoln can do it. And they kind of built momentum as they went through it. East Lincoln got a taste of that last year. Those kids, a good many of them, were on that team that lost to Lincoln in a terrific game that Phil saw in the Western Finals a year ago. You know, I would think, much like we talked about with South Point in the Big South Conference, the East Lincoln kids feel a bit of unfinished business and want this to kind of be a really impressive year. And another thing with them too, I mean, they're arguably their best player, Keith Rendelman, was in the basketball regionals a year ago. So I mean, I think, and there's other couple of kids on the team in his situation. So I think this group at East Lincoln really has a chance to leave a target for future East Lincoln students to shoot for, because this is as good a time in the history of that school athletically. And I think that I certainly think they feel like they're up to the challenge, but it is going to be a daunting one. So I think they can do it, but it ain't going to be easy.
Right. I think East Lincoln's got the best chance out of our local teams to win a state championship. I think maybe slightly better chance than South Point, because from all accounts they've been playing great ever since that first game lost to Conover. Have not been able to see them this year, but, you know, the offense is clicking. They lost a quarterback, and then the second guy came in, Preston Perry, and just torched Lincoln. So they've got depth. I think the one team that really stands in their way in their bracket is probably High Brighton. I think we could very well see, you know, East Lincoln versus High Brighton in the fourth round. But, you know, after what they did last year, they've got a lot of confidence. They got a bunch of those guys back, playoff experience. I see this team going a long way.
Final question concerning the Southern Piedmont. Bessemer City's obviously done a great job to get where they are, to get a home playoff game. That's usually what everybody's shooting for, is to get at least one home playoff game. But would it be a disappointing year if they didn't get at least one win after doing what they did during the regular season?
I think it'd be a little disappointing. I mean, anytime you have the season that Bessemer's had, you want to validate that. Just like we were talking about Forest here in the Big South video, you want to win to sort of validate what you've done during the regular season. And they better get it done this week. I mean, it looks like they've got a tough draw. I mean, they got Monroe coming in with an 8-2 10-game record, and then if they get by that, they'll probably have Nip Conover in the second round. So
right.
Very, very tough draw. But this is the week to do it. I think, like I said, first round playoff win would validate what they do. Otherwise, it could be a disappointing ending for sure.
Well, yeah, if you look at Bessemer City's schedule, they've played people that are comparable to Monroe's and Newton Conovers. I don't think that they're going to be intimidated, whether it's this year or last year's schedule. And the thing with them too, this is that group of kids that when they were 7th and 8th graders played in 2 straight Gaston County championship games. So they've been in an element of the spotlight, maybe not quite as bright, but there's a feeling in that school and that program and community over there that this is kind of the group that can kind of take them somewhere to get to where they haven't been in a while.